This is a talk called Deserving Design. It's about ideas from the past which are affecting service design in the current period. My name's Alistair Somerville, and you can find me on Twitter at acuity_design. So service design is an idea which is very current, particularly in government, and it's about the idea that we can design services for citizens. But underlying that is an idea which is much older, and that's a question. And it's a question about who deserves service. Now, deserving is an idea which is framed by history, and I want to start by talking about a couple of things which come from British history, which affect not merely the ideas in Britain, but also all the countries where Britain, through empire, ended up. And what we have is two very, very old conservative fears. Fears which are from people who are holding power, who have power. There are two dates, 1351 and 1531. And these dates are when two statutes, two laws were created in the English Parliament. And they affect the ideas that we have today. 1351, the Statute of Labourers. The Statute of Labourers controlled wages and controlled the rights of workers. And it came out of plague. It came out of the plague, which killed 40% of the population of England. And what that massive death rate caused was a loss of labour in a feudal society. And what that then created was the ability of labourers to demand more. People without power were able to demand better wages, better conditions, change. And this was, of course, horrifying to those people who had power, who had feudal power. There was a fear that power could shift in a way that they had never imagined and never desired. So the Statute of Labourers was to try and control that, to stop it. And then in 1531 you have the Vagabonds Act, which is the start of what became many centuries of poor laws. And this came out of the idea that poor people, people without money, without power, could actually start using the changes in modern society, using the ideas that cities were being created, new industries, and all of this was framed around the idea that the nation state was a thing, that nations and nations fighting nations was an idea. But within this, and this is the idea of vagabonds, what was the fear? The fear was free movement. The fear was that people could move around the country, the nation, not staying where they were supposed to stay in the power of the local lords, but actually able to move and do and change jobs and to create new jobs and create money. And again, to create money is to create the possibility of power, and that would create change. And change for conservatives, for those who have power, is always about loss of control and the fear of loss of control. Because, of course, they operate in a system, they operate with a privilege which is about the need to control. So those two acts are about this idea that there is fear, that there is this idea that they need to maintain control. But of course, there are two things about that. One is the idea that power is about allocating resources, allocating what resources are available. But also it's about allocating effort. And within both of these situations, there were not enough people to actually control the changes. And thus we get to the point where people in power, needed to sort and divide the population. They needed to find a way of being able to sort who needed resources and sort those people who needed controlling to stop them misbehaving. And this came down to a simple question: who is good and who is bad? And it came to a simple possibility that one could create a line, saying this side is good people and this side is bad people. Because then one can look at how one allocates resources to those who are deserving compassion, the deserving poor. And one can look at the undeserving, those who deserve punishment, the undeserving immigrant. So the system has to be able to divine deserving. It has to be able to sort people, one side or the other side of the line. But the line is random. The line is a creation of the people in power. So when they talk about who deserves service, it comes from their bias about who is good, who is bad, who might take power from them, and who might accept power from them. And as we move to a more modern period, the idea of who deserves service goes to who is deserving design. And so service design sits on top of a very, very long history of conservative fears. It sits on top of these conservative fears which have existed for hundreds and hundreds of years, which has a fundamental question. How do we divine and divide who deserves service and design? Who should be allocated resources? Who should be allocated punishment? And of course, surrounding service design is the fact that it is those who have power, it is power who chooses who's deserving. And it is power that creates divisions. Power is where the line is drawn between who is good and who is bad. So how can service design change this? How can service design stop power from creating a line that divides? Because the line is purely an invention of those in power. So how can it work? How does it work?